Pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted by the committee on Thursday, September 18, 2025, the committee is resuming its study on the update on the implementation of the Grocery Code of Conduct. I'd like to welcome our guests that are joining us here today. From Costco Wholesale Canada Limited, we have Mr. Nenchi, Senior Vice President, Canada Merchandising. We have Empire Company Limited, Rob Alsop. Thank you for being here. And from Walmart Canada Corporation, Rhonda Maines Corrado, who is the Senior Vice President. I'd like to say thank you for joining us here today. We appreciate it, taking time from your busy schedule. Everyone will have 5 minutes, and then we'll go to our first round of questions. We'll start in here with our witness who's actually in the room. Mr. Nenchi, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Bonjour, Monsieur Coteau, Président.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Coteau and members of the committee. Thank you for inviting Costco to appear before your committee today to discuss the Canadian Grocery Code of Conduct. My name is Pietro Nenchi, and I am the SVP for merchandising in Costco in Canada. I have been involved in conversations relating to the Grocery Code through the RCC, that is the Canadian Retailers Association, since early discussions. Costco has been actively involved with the industry-wide stakeholder working group on the dispute resolution process and other governance documents since the spring of 2024. As you know, Costco is a membership club. Our mission is to offer our members the best quality goods and services at the best possible prices through our unique retail business model. We offer limited focus and others.
Code of ethics, of obeying the law, taking care of our members and employees, respecting our suppliers, and rewarding our shareholders. We echo the message that for Costco to thrive, our suppliers have to thrive. We rely on each other. Canadian suppliers represent 65% of Costco's private label Kirkland Signature sales in Canada. Buying local when we can and where it makes sense is our priority. We support the principle of the code, transparency, certainty, and fair dealing. These principles align with our code of ethics. We continue to work diligently through the working group to finalize the governance rules that will apply to the operation of the grocery code. In particular, there has been a lot of work done by all the stakeholders on the dispute resolution process, which is a very important element of the code for Costco. We are optimistic that the stakeholders working together and through compromise will shortly find agreement on a few outstanding points. You asked, will the Code of Conduct have the effect of decreasing food prices to consumer? We do not believe it will. It was not designed for that purpose in mind. However, if there's broad industry participation, including retailers, suppliers, wholesalers, large and small, we believe it can succeed on its goal to contribute to a thriving and competitive grocery industry. Nous appuyons les principes du Code.
We support the principles of the code and plan to sign on once there is mutual agreement on the details of its governance. Thank you.
Much. We appreciate that. Next, we'll go to Empire Company Limited online. Mr. Alsop. Yeah, thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon. Bon après-midi, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. And thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be here today. I'm Rob Alsop, Vice President of National Sourcing and Supplier Engagement here at Sobeys Inc. Just as a bit of background, I began working at Sobeys 35 years ago as a student, pushing literally carts down the aisle, and I've worked in various roles across the organization with increasing responsibility. I've been very proud to be a part of this Sobeys Canadian family for all these years. In my current role, I work with our supplier partners every day. I've been closely involved with preparation for the code implementation. And along this path, we've employed a cross-functional team that represents stakeholders across the organization to ensure that all facets of engagement with supplier partners reflect our commitment to fairness and transparency. Since the beginning of this journey, Sobeys has been a leading voice for the concept, the adoption, and the upcoming implementation of the code. From 2020, when Michael Medline, our former CEO, spoke about the challenging supplier-grocer relationship and called for a code, to the creation of the draft Grocery Supply Code of Practice of Canada that was launched in 2021, to the present-day Grocery Code of Conduct, we played a leadership role every step of the way. And To be clear, we're very proud to have been the first major retailer to sign on this past July. As we move forward, we're also fortunate, if you heard the latest news, to have our new CEO, Pierre St. Laurent, now formally announced, also a 30-year plus veteran of the grocery industry, who is very supportive and committed to the code. Conducting business fairly, collaboratively, and consistently, it's always been a part of our culture since this company was founded over 100 years ago. Code isn't just a framework, it's a commitment to a stronger, more transparent industry, one where suppliers, retailers, and consumers, we can all thrive together. We continuously work to foster a collaborative relationship with all our supplier partners at Sobeys. It's always been a heightened priority, also to invest in our local Canadian suppliers, helping to facilitate their expansion into the larger grocery market. So the pathway to the code implementation has provided an excellent opportunity for us to closely review our policies and ways of working, just to ensure we're upholding the standards we have for ourselves and also of the code. So just a few notables to share. We assessed and updated our policies where we found improvement opportunities. And we created a master framework agreement that serves as the foundation for our partnerships with suppliers. We've developed new resources for suppliers, such as a clean glossary of terms that explains in plain language a lot of the technical terms we use internally every day. We've developed a new supplier resource center, which houses all our policies in one centralized portal. This web-based platform is a one-stop shop for everything a supplier needs to know about working with us. We'll also simplify onboarding for new suppliers. This portal will continue to enhance engagement while also reinforcing the core principles of transparency, predictability, and openness. And then we've also rolled out a full training and communication refresh plan to ensure all internal teammates are well equipped as we move forward into January. In addition, we maintain a graduated model for how we work with local, small, mid-sized, and our national and global partners. And that model allows for local and small suppliers to build their business with us in a simplified way, from Meadow Creek Sausage and Meat in Alberta to the Great Lakes Food Company in Ontario, UNCUT in Quebec, Paradise Bakery in Newfoundland. We've helped foster growth among our supplier partners from hyperlocal to national status. We're proud to say that we have over 2,500 local suppliers right here in Canada, and that number continues to grow. So in summary, we'll ensure the code's best practices continue to be upheld within our organization. We look forward to the ongoing collaboration with the new adjudicator, Karen Proud and her team. And the code will, we know the code will provide stability. It's going to create efficiencies and it'll promote investment in the Canadian food industry. And that leads to a stronger supply chain here at home in the months and years to come. Finally, I'll say again, we're proud to have championed the code from the beginning. We're confident our current ways of working with suppliers personify the spirit of the code. And that said, we're also confident that we will address any issues through the engagement, collaboration, and fair and consistent mindset together with our partners as we always do. Merci. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today, Mr. Chair, and members of the community.
Thank you very much. And we will now go to Walmart for 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and honorable members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute on behalf of Walmart Canada to your important study on the implementation of the Grocery Code of Conduct. My name is Rhonda Means-Corrado, and I am the SVP General Counsel at Walmart Canada. At Walmart, our mission is straightforward: to help Canadians save money and live better. While this is always important, it becomes even more significant during challenging economic times. Lowering prices for our customers is in our DNA. C'est la mission autour de laquelle nos équipes.
It's the mission around which our teams work and have done so for many years, more than 30 years. We are here to help Canadian families with our more than 400 shops.
This year, Walmart Canada announced a new $6.5 billion investment over the next 5 years to expand our stores and supply chain, following a $3.5 billion investment announced in 2020. We also support our local communities and have raised and donated over $850 million to Canadian charities since 1994, including $83 million in 2024 alone. From coast to coast, our team of about 100,000 associates serves millions of customers every week, delivering on the everyday low prices our customers deserve. Everyday low prices, or EDLP as we call it at Walmart, is at the core of everything we do. EDLP is not just a pricing strategy, and it's not a reaction to the times. For Canadian consumers, it means reliable, consistent access to affordable groceries without needing to wait for a promotion or a sale. Part of how we deliver these everyday low prices is through collaboration with our suppliers. Walmart Canada has great working relationships with our suppliers, whom we hold in the highest regard. Since 1994, we've purchased billions of dollars worth of goods from many Canadian suppliers. We work closely with them to help nurture and support their businesses with the goal of growing together. Just this summer, we hosted our first Walmart Canada Growth Summit, inviting 120 local suppliers to pitch their products directly to our merchants for a chance to be listed with us. All of these suppliers were invited to list on our online marketplace, and about half of these suppliers are now working closely with us to put their products on our shelves, with the first arriving early next year. Fairness, transparency, and predictability. The same principles that the Code seeks to establish have defined our supplier relationships for the past 30 years. On the Code, let me be clear. Walmart Canada intends to sign on to the Code once all outstanding documents have been finalized. We have been actively engaged in the development of these documents, including participating constructively in the industry working group. At Walmart Canada, our core values set the expectations of how our associates work in a way that is fair, honest, and transparent to earn the trust of our customers, suppliers, and communities. In conclusion, Walmart Canada is committed to working with this committee, the Grocery Code Office, and our supplier partners to ensure the code achieves its intended objectives. We will continue investing in Canada, supporting local producers and businesses, and delivering value to our customers through everyday low prices. We stand ready to collaborate with policymakers and industry partners to prioritize affordability and accessibility for Canadians. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before the committee today. I welcome your questions.
Thank you very much. Before we begin our first round of 6 minutes, I just wanted to note that filling in for Mr. Bragdon is Mr. Kurek. Thank you for being here and joining the committee. We'll start with the Conservatives for 6 minutes. Mr. Barlow.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I appreciate all of our witnesses being here and just walking us through hopefully what is the final steps of the Grocery Code of Conduct coming into force. But I have to say, Mr. Nenshi, I'm really surprised with your testimony saying that the Grocery Code of Conduct will not lower grocery prices. About 2 years ago at this very time, the finance minister made a very grand announcement to the press gallery that he is committed to lower grocery prices by Thanksgiving at that time, Thanksgiving 2023, by 5 very poignant initiatives. And one of those 5 was the Grocery Code of Conduct that he promised Canadians would lower food prices. Well, in fact, we're 2 years later. Food inflation in Canada is 40% higher than the United States. We are the only G7 country where food inflation has increased 4 straight months. And we have food inflation now 50% higher than the target. So I am surprised that the finance minister would make such a claim that the Grocery Code of Conduct is going to lower food prices when clearly, as a result of your testimony and testimony from other stakeholders, that just isn't the case. And I just want you to explain why the government would make a claim that this is going to lower food prices when it was never intended to be that. That certainly seems to be some disconnect from what the code is and what the government is claiming it will do.
Well, the code was made for better practices through different vendor suppliers across Canada. It was never meant to negotiate pricing or talk about pricing. A lot goes beyond price. Commodity, labor, freight, tariffs, exchange rates. So for us, the code was not meant to be. It's just to make a better level playing field for everybody that works in that industry.
And I appreciate that comment. It kind of leads me to my next question for Ms. Maines-Corrado at Walmart. And Ms. Maines-Corrado, I know you weren't here 2 years ago, but we had the President and CEO of Walmart at that time actually say that there are elements of the Grocery Code of Conduct which could actually make the playing field unlevel and actually increase costs on retailers, which would then increase costs on consumers. Would you share Mr. Nenshi's opinion that there's no elements of the Grocery Code of Conduct that will actually lower prices for consumers?
I agree that the code, as it's drafted in final form, was not intended to, nor does this the setup actually support impact on pricing. So yes, I agree. It will not impact pricing.
Ms. Mains-Corrado, does Walmart still have concerns? Is one of the reasons that you haven't signed on to the Grocery Code of Conduct is there still concerns that there could be elements of the code which would actually increase prices on food for consumers, or have those concerns been alleviated in the interim?
So our concerns were alleviated in the principles of the code, which we agreed to last year. And with respect to the remaining documentation, it was the governance and dispute resolution model. So we are not of the view at this stage that the code will impact pricing. It's relating to fairness, transparency, and principles about the interactions between suppliers and retailers, not about pricing.
Thank you. Mr. Alsop, I wanted to thank you for Empire for signing on to the code, but I also wanted to ask you the same question. Would you agree with the assessment of your colleagues that there are no specific elements of the Grocery Code of Conduct which will ensure in one lever or another that retailers will be lowering food prices for consumers?
I do agree with the statements made. Transparency and predictability support a more efficient supply chain. So when there's fewer disputes, clearer terms, more stable relationships, that reduces frictional costs over time, creates a more resilient system that can better manage volatility and keep food moving efficiently to Canadians. That's the benefit. But I agree, no direct impact on price.
Thank you. And maybe I'll ask just to build on that a little bit. Mr. Nenshi, for example, I think once Canadians hear that the Grocery Code of Conduct has been enacted and later in January, as a result of the communications, as misleading as it is from the Liberal government, that all of a sudden grocery prices are going to start to go down, are you concerned as a retailer that when that doesn't happen in February, March, and April, that the retailers will be facing the blame as a result of the Liberal government saying, hey, once the Grocery Code of Conduct is in, you're going to see grocery prices go down? And who do you think is going to get blamed when that doesn't happen? Even though it is no doing of your own, it is misleading communications directly by the Liberal government.
Well, we'll continue to do what we do best every day, try to bring the best possible value and price to our members. What we know about the code, it's more like, I'm repeating myself, but it's more fair play, a level playing field to be fair with everybody, make a more robust industry. But at Costco, we strive every day to give you the best value to our members, and that concept, that wholesale club concept works well for us. So we believe that that trust is still there.
I appreciate, I think all of us agree the Grocery Code of Conduct is an important tool, but I think clearly there needs to be some communication and outreach by the Liberal government to inform Canadians that truly the Grocery Code of Conduct is not going to lower food prices for consumers and come clean with consumers, that that's not what this was intended for, and that's not the result that they should be seeing despite their claims by the Finance Minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll go to the Liberals for 6 minutes. MP Danduran.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It was so interesting to hear those comments about how people should communicate in order not to misinform population. Just on that topic, I'd like to have the perspective of some of you about what is driving, and I know this is probably not your specialty, but what's driving driving up the price of food in Canada? And we heard many members of the Conservative Party saying that there are hidden taxes that are the major driver of food inflation. So I'd like to hear each of your perspective on that.
On that, because that's what I do every day for many decades. So what drives the price of food, there's a lot of factors. The first one would be the commodity itself, what the product is, how it's grown, Mother Nature, that changes every year. So that's probably the first aspect of the cost of a product. Number two, there's variables. There's our Canadian dollar. Often we have to buy those commodities in another currency. That would affect also the cost of goods. Transportation, price of transportation, price of labor. We saw a big inflation of price of labor. So when you add all these things up, it's a big part of the inflation that you saw lately. but there's also deflation in some categories. So I'll give you some examples if it's maybe pertinent to the committee. So last year we saw, 2 years ago, the price of olive oil skyrocketed, and this year it's plummeting. Same thing with canola oil. Bad crop, price goes up. Good crop, price comes down. Nothing to do with any committee, nothing to do with any, it's Mother Nature sometimes just does its work. We'll look at price of chocolate. When you go shop for chocolate this fall, you're going to see that it's more expensive than last year. Nothing to do with any policies. It's just a bad crop in the country producing the cocoa bean. Price of coffee is through the roof these days. The price will come down eventually, but that's a lot of the aspect of pricing in our food world. And I could talk also for small producers. A good crop, there's pressure on pricing going down, and a bad crop, prices go up. So there's a lot of variables, but nature plays a certain role. Also in prepared foods or processed foods, there's sugar, there's flour, there's all those ingredients that come into play. So more than policies, more than everything, I think the commodity market itself, and that's why every day we follow those prices very, very closely, up or down.
Merci beaucoup. Et mon temps est limité.
Thank you very much. My time is limited. So I think that probably your position reflects that of your colleagues from the other grocery chains. I'd like to thank you as well for your commitment with respect to the code of conduct. You have very good relations with your suppliers. Mr. Alsop, I'd like to thank you for having been the first and the only retailer to have signed the code. So thank you very much. And that brings me now to Walmart. Walmart is more or less the source of was the source of the code of conduct. A few years ago, there was some issue with the prices that were set, and that led to this voluntary code of conduct. Can you tell us where you are today with respect to your commitment to the code? How close are you to signing the code?
Thank you for your question. As I mentioned, Walmart intends to sign on to the code when the documents are finalized. Those documents are now working their way through the approval process, and the final drafts are ones where I'm confident to say that January 1st should be a very feasible document for completion.
De frais présentement.
Current costs are shared with the producers. So what would Walmart like to see changed, or would like to see charges brought on to producers?
Si pour être un peu plus clair, je prends l'exemple.
Or maybe I could be clearer. Think about the IT system. If there were an IT system, that would help. But what other things could be imposed upon agricultural producers in these agreements by Walmart?
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question.
So in some instances, there are some fees that grocery stores, generally speaking, maybe not only Walmart, but what type of fees, other than just buying the product, should producers pay to groceries or grocers?
Thank you. So fees are part of a commercial negotiation between two parties, and the nature of the fees are going to vary depending on a number of factors, including the product and the categories involved. At Walmart, our fee structure is both designed and implemented in a fair and transparent manner. It is done with reasonable notice, and as I mentioned, as part of the ongoing commercial negotiations, similar to when suppliers have cost increases that enter into the negotiation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Perron, 6 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. And thank you to our witnesses for being available to us this afternoon. Presence is very important, and it's good to consult everyone. I had proposed that we invite you because this will allow us to feel out the totality of these grocery change. I'm a bit concerned about Mr. Alsop's comments, but I lift my hat to him. I salute him because he has been the first to sign on to the code. It's very important to us to have the major grocery chains sign on. It's not everybody who can do that. If without you, it may not work. Mr. Alsop, what made you sign now, even though the negotiations aren't quite finalized?
Merci.
Thank you.
From 2020, when I sort of in my opening statements walked back just how long we've been very motivated to bring this to the industry. We feel this is the ways of working that has been embedded in our culture since the beginning, quite frankly. So we were happy with the direction that the working group, as the code has gone through its various iterations, the path they were on, and we were quite confident it was on heading in the right direction to come to its formal implementation this January. So we have no reason to hold up the process. We know how to...
Merci, Monsieur Alsop. Juste pour...
Thank you, Mr. Alsop. But to be more precise, we hear people tell us that they have to wait until the process is finished before they sign. I ask this question. That's why I asked this question. Why don't you sign up now? Because we know that the final product is going to be satisfactory, as you've said.
Absolutely. And that's why we have no concerns about the direction we're going, right? And we were confident to sign knowing that, our ways of working align with the principles of the code.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Ms. Mains Corrado, thank you for being with us. When I hear you say Empire will sign once the document is finished. Is your commitment formal, strong? We are in a public meeting today. You have committed to being part of the process. And with respect to your level of participation, with respect to the negotiations to put this code in place, can you give me any more details? What part do you play?
So Walmart has been actively engaged in the industry working group, working collaboratively alongside the other members, including large grocers, in developing the dispute resolution model to ensure that the principles of the code, which are, as you know, high level and principle based, come to life and are implemented appropriately through the more process driven dispute resolution process. I'm very comfortable that we have had a robust dialogue where all parties have been working very positively and collaboratively together. And we are at final draft stage. I see no material issues at this stage and fully anticipate having the DRMP in place for January 1st.
Okay, merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Okay. So if you remember, in previous iterations of the process, there were two groups that didn't want to sign. They were invited to the committee, but we're very happy to hear you today. I understand then from your answer that you will be signing. Thank you so much for that. Mr. Nancy, am I pronouncing your name? Nancy. Mr. Nancy, thank you so much for being with us today. It was mentioned earlier that the advantage of having done these investigations over the course of time, 3 times, was that it has allowed us to better understand you and to know what you do better. You are going to sign. It's almost official, but why don't you do it now? Well, currently, we've received the most recent draft. Forgive my using the English word. But from what I've seen and what I've heard, we are ready to sign the agreement, which will be presented to the board of directors for approval. And further to that, we're ready to sign. Excellent. I'm starting with you because I think you're very open. Would you be comfortable with this? We have talked about setting up a mechanism, an oversight mechanism. I understand the way in which you operate in your business, but we've heard, for example, for organic products, the margins are larger. I don't want you to speak to anything that is confidential, but if you had a price surveillance system, could you address that? Well, we are a club, but we don't operate like our competitors. We are a club. We have an annual fee, and that allows us to lower our prices because part of that comes from the membership payment. Yes, but with respect to an oversight, well, I'm talking about our margins.
Perron. We'll go next to 5 minutes to Mr. Epp.
Mr. Chair, and thank you to the witnesses for being here. I'll begin with Mr. Alsop. First, I will say thank you to Empire for leading from the retail sector in pushing for the code initially or agreeing to the push for the code. I'm not sure what the proper phraseology is there. And again, your leadership now. Since the time of July of last year when there was agreement from all retailers to sign on to the principles, and now, in your annual process of renegotiating for the upcoming season, for the upcoming year, have you changed any practices? You mentioned in your opening testimony that you've reviewed some of the terms, you've clarified, but from an overall perspective, have you changed your practices in dealing with your vendors?
Thank you for the question. And yeah, we continuously are assessing, monitoring, and reviewing. And it's similar to how we all can, manage our expenses in life. We're constantly reviewing emerging expenses, changes in the environment, the industry, and we're constantly calibrating. And so to say this year, did anything change? Every year things change, right? But they were done with fairness and under the principles which we work with our suppliers, which are also reflected in the code.
Mr. Nenshi, same question. Have you changed any of your annual cycle with your suppliers?
We, in our code of ethics, respect our supplier has been there for decades since the inception of our company, and we strive with that. Our buying teams are brought up from within, so they start at the hourly level, then they get promoted within. And that practice of respecting our supplier and do the right thing every day with our business community is imperative to our business model.
Thank you. I have had discussions with vendors, and neither Empire nor Costco have come up from a major change, particularly in cyclical timing from the annual process. I'm going to go to Walmart, and I'll be direct here. And I don't want my comments or questions to be construed in any way that that I'm negative on this code coming to the finish line, because I'm not. It's just the opposite. However, what is concerning are reports that some retailers are actually changing the timing of the renegotiation to get out ahead of January 1st. And so I'm going to ask you to comment and not only change the timing, but actually be far more aggressive this year as per other years in their asks of their vendors as they move into. So I'll ask, Madam, if you could respond on behalf of Walmart. Has Walmart changed its timing? Because that is what I have heard. And Walmart is not the only retailer.
So fairness, transparency, and honesty are part of the core values of Walmart. That hasn't changed in the past year, and it will continue on in the future. I'm not aware that those allegations were directed at Walmart, and we've continued to operate last year as we will next year in the spirit of fairness and transparency.
My question is more specifically on the timing of an annual renewal process.
I'm not aware of any specific change to that timing.
Okay. One of the triggers that really brought this whole issue to the fore was capital investments made by retailers, and then the process of kind of pushing them back on the value chain several years ago. And Walmart was one of them. And in your opening comments, you did refer to a $6.5 billion investment that you're looking. And I think, if that brings lower prices for consumers and greater transparency, I think we're all in favor of that. Who's going to pay for that?
Walmart is investing the $6.5 billion in Canada as part of our growth.
So would that come up in your discussions with vendors?
To the extent that there are any fees, they're all designed and implemented in a way that is fair and transparent. There'd be reasonable notice, and any fees would be part of an ongoing commercial negotiation with our suppliers.
And so I'll dig down just a little bit further then. So just from a practices perspective, the development of the code, have you found it advantageous from Walmart to both maintain your commitment to keep prices low for consumers and also increase transparency and fairness with your relationships with vendors?
So again, I don't believe the code goes to pricing. The code goes to relationships.
Right.
And the principles of fairness and transparency that are key to the code are likewise key to our core values as a company, and therefore are very much complementary.
Great. Thank you. So what I will ask you to do, you did mention in response to my earlier question that you were not aware of any change in the timing of Walmart's annual cycle. If you go back, because I believe your position is general counsel, if you become aware, and if you check back with your colleagues and you are aware, could you table a response with the committee that Walmart has changed their timing with vendors and their applications? And please do not misconstrue my comments of any kind of negative feedback on the development of this code. I fully support the code, and I look forward to its implementation from all parties throughout the whole value chain. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we'll go to Mr. Connors next. 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone for coming out today. I'm going to start with a representative from Sobeys. We had the Canadian Federation of Independent Grocers here a while ago, and they explained that not only is Sobeys a grocery store, but they also supply to independent stores as well. Is there any extent to that the code of conduct would change how Sobeys does business as a supplier to the independent grocery stores?
Thank you for that question. And the simple answer is no. Our ways of working with our suppliers will be unchanged, other than some of the enhancements we talked about in the opening comments.
So you're quite good answer. Well, I'll give you an opportunity to talk about food inflation, because you never had a chance. Just a few minutes, and what's the cause of food inflation, and if there are any hidden taxes or anything like that.
Yeah, and I'm equipped here today to speak to the code, of course, which we've established does not, necessarily directly connect to price. And but my peer in the industry, gentleman from Costco, he covered all the things I would list to you. I don't think I need to repeat them. They're all the factors driving inflation that we manage every day. This is what we do, right?
Okay, thank you very much. The lady from Walmart was mentioned earlier that the president was here back in 2023 and talked about an unlevel playing field between suppliers and retailers, and this is how the dispute resolution came about. Would you have any thoughts on how you feel the dispute between suppliers and retailers over possible violations of the code should be addressed?
So as part of the working group collaboratively developing the DRMP, I'm comfortable that the process that has been arrived at in the final drafts is an appropriate one that is fair and consistent with the principles of the code.
Okay. Going to Costco, as an individual consumer, and what would be the benefit do you see of having the code of conduct for me? What would be, if you had to sell it, what would be your sell to the individual consumer?
I would say short term, not that much. Mid to long term, probably more, let's call it more innovation, productivity, innovation, more. If the industry is more well balanced and fair play, I think investments will be greater, and producers will take more chances to launch new items.
Okay. Sobeys, do you have anything to add to that?
Sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to repeat the question if you don't mind. Thank you.
As a consumer, and if you had to sell the code of conduct that you're participating in as a voluntary program, you're one of the first people to sign in. What would you use? What would be the benefits to a consumer for the code of conduct? What do you see as the benefits to a consumer for the code of conduct?
Well, we've learned through the last several years just how fragile the food industry can be. Particularly when we think about the geopolitical impacts and all the things around us that we manage on any given day. So the resiliency of our food chain, that to me is one of the primary benefits that a consumer would gain, that confidence and, consistency of food supply in Canada.
Okay. Walmart, I'll give you a chance to answer that as well.
Yeah, I would also add that the relationships between suppliers and retailers working well will ultimately benefit customers. I agree more in the long term. Principles of fairness and transparency can only help those relationships. And we at Walmart know then when our suppliers are doing well, we do well, and we're better able together to deliver on low prices for Canadians. But that's a long-term indirect result of strong relationships.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mr. Perron, 2.5 minutes.
Merci.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I'm going to go back to the question I asked Mr. Nanchi earlier. I'll ask it now of Mr. Alsop. If there were an oversight body that would be set up that could oversee your strategic information, would you be open to that? Would it be good for the industry?
Well, I think it would be, thank you for the question, merci beaucoup. I think it would be, dangerous in the sense of it could slow things down. And in our industry, we have to be careful. Things move at a fast pace. We have to make quick decisions. And as long as we are all abiding by the principles that are set forth in the code, we can move with velocity and, continue the strong food supply that our customers expect. As soon as we add layers of complexity and oversight committees, escalation processes that maybe aren't unnecessary, technically that could slow us down, and that worries me a little bit because we have to adapt quickly to the changing environment of the industry we're in.
Excuse, je vous interromps, j'ai pas beaucoup de temps, mais
I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't have a lot of time, but that wouldn't necessarily slow down your operations with the independence. That might perhaps help benefit fruit and vegetable growers that price 4 or 5 times their goods at which they are received. For example, products from Mexico or other organic products. When you take a look at the price of production, you know that the margin would be greater. It seems to me that public information about all that would be a benefit. Madam Mains Corrado, do you have something to say about this?
It's challenging to give an opinion on or thoughts on an oversight body without further details and a better understanding of what that would look like. In terms of the current structure that we've been working on of a voluntary code, a lot of work has been, as has been mentioned, has been put in over the past few years for collaborative effort throughout the industry to develop this voluntary code. And I think while it is not necessarily clear how it will
quelque chose qui serait
be
comme
important.
parallèle, là, madame.
But maybe it would be something parallel, something different that could provide greater transparency in the industry to protect the suppliers who, say, wouldn't be in the code.
So this would be separate from the code. So because the code itself is about principles of fairness and transparency. So the voluntary code should be given an opportunity, I believe, to be put into practice to see how it plays out once implemented.
Thank you, Mr. Perron. I'd like to say thank you to all of our witnesses for joining us here today. We're going to stop now. We appreciate your time, and thank you. To the committee, we're just going to take a small little break and prepare for our next witness. So if you can stay in the room, we'll try to do this as quick as possible. Thank you. On the sidelines, we're going to start the meeting. For the next 20 minutes, we have Ms. Proud joining us. Thank you for joining. I think I'll skip the speech I usually give at the beginning because you've been here many times. You know what those recommendations are, but we'll go right into it. You have up to 5 minutes to present, and then we'll open up for 5 minutes each from each of the respected parties.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the committee for inviting me back as part of your study on the Grocery Sector Code of Conduct. I'm starting to feel quite at home here these days. Since I last appeared, the office has made substantive progress on the dispute resolution management process. We now have a very solid final draft that reflects extensive input from across the sector and is currently moving through the approval process. With this progress, we remain on track for full implementation on January 1st, and we hope to be in a position to launch our formal recruitment early in December. I have listened intently to the testimony before this committee, and one message that has come through very clearly relates to concerns about confidentiality when raising issues with the office. The imbalance of power in parts of the supply chain is very real, especially for farmers who we count on to grow the food that feeds this nation, yet they often operate with limited commercial leverage. Ensuring they have a trusted avenue to bring forward concerns is critical to the effective functioning of the code, and we have taken these concerns very seriously. Although the DRMP plays an important role, it is designed, much like the formal arbitration system in the United Kingdom, to be used only when the other earlier avenues cannot resolve an issue. By design, it is a bilateral process between two parties to a specific commercial relationship and cannot accommodate class action style complaints. It is also not confidential between parties, which may make it challenging for some producers to pursue this. For these and other reasons, it is important to highlight that the DRMP is not meant to be the starting point for most issues. That is precisely why the office has created additional mechanisms that are intended to be used when code-related issues first arise. These confidential and systemic pathways allow members and their associations to raise concerns confidentially, and they allow the office to engage directly with companies to clarify issues, promote understanding, and support voluntary alignment with the code. This reflects the UK experience, where the vast majority of concerns are resolved through confidential engagement, not through formal arbitration. We recognize the need for stronger engagement with primary producers, and we have begun exploring options to enhance our interactions with producers and their associations within the legal constraints that we must respect. These approaches are aimed at improving dialogue, strengthening trust, and ensuring producers have effective and trusted avenues to surface their concerns. We will be consulting directly with producers and their associations as this work progresses, and we will report in our annual reports on what is working well and what may need adjustments as we gain experience with the code and the systems we have put in place to support its implementation. Our model remains closely aligned with international best practices. The emphasis on confidential early engagement, systemic issue tracking, and transparent follow-up reflects the UK experience, where these tools have helped improve commercial conduct and build supplier confidence over time. I want to thank this committee for its sustained focus on the agriculture sector and the realities facing farmers. Your attention matters. For a voluntary code such as ours, parliamentary oversight reinforces the importance of fairness, transparency, and accountability across the supply chain. As implementation moves ahead, I would encourage the committee to continue to monitor our progress, and I would welcome the opportunity to return, once again, once the code has been in place for some time, to report back on how it is functioning in practice. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. We'll start with the Conservatives for 5 minutes. Mr. Barlow.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just have one question, and I'm going to cede my time over to my colleague, Mr. Rep. Ms. Proud, thanks again for all the work that you've done on shepherding this to where you have. But I do think this is a legitimate concern with the Grocery Code of Conduct, that 2 years ago the Minister of Finance said he has 5 distinct tools he's going to be using to lower food prices. And if food prices aren't lowered, he is going to take additional action. Those were his words. One of those tools was to tell Canadians that once the Grocery Code of Conduct is implemented, food prices will be lowered. We've heard from every single stakeholder that just isn't the case, including yourself, that that's not the case. I am worried that this is going to erode confidence in the Grocery Code of Conduct when it's implemented, that Canadians are going to be expecting to see lower food prices, and it's just not going to happen. Have you had conversations with the government to communicate this fact to Canadians that this is not what the Grocery Code of Conduct was intended to be, to ensure that there is confidence within the code, not only from your members, but from consumers?
So one of the key roles of the office is to ensure that people are aware of what the code is and what isn't. And so we in the office have been communicating as much as we can about the code and through the media and through other means, including our website. And we do have government officials that sit on our board of directors as observers. And so I think a lot of clarifications are needed with regards to the code, not just about whether it impacts food pricing, but how the code works generally.
I'll pass my time to Mr. Abbott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks. Good to see you again. I want to pick up on the point from your testimony around confidentiality. The need for confidentiality obviously comes from the risk of intimidation and things like that. Just for the record, I know the vendors that I communicate with are not just producers or smaller producers with a size difference. A number of these vendors actually are dealing in 9 figures of sales volume. And would you agree that that is also a factor, even for companies that deal in the hundreds of millions of dollars?
Absolutely. And I have heard from virtually every company that I have met with concerns about confidentiality. It was the same situation in the UK, that nobody spoke to the adjudicator in her first 6 months to a year in office when they started the code, because they were concerned about confidentiality. And that is why we have put in place in the office processes by which people can report issues to us in confidence, where their names will never be released, but we can still do our job to work with companies to address issues related to the code.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to an issue I raised in the earlier round of testimony, that I have had conversations with vendors right now that just, and again, I'm so glad to see that the finishing line is so close. But I have had allegations of intensity of negotiations and changes in timing from multiple retailers because of the January 1st deadline. Is any of that coming into your office?
I've heard anecdotally concerns within the sector of behaviors that may not be code compliant. We take all that information in, whether companies are members or not, to see what's going on in the environment. When we have members that come on board, part of our job in the office is to talk to them about how they are adapting their processes around the code, similar to questions that they've had today, and I will do the same thing.
So the avenue, let's say if some of those came into the office on behalf of either producers or food manufacturers, would your first, I believe, if I understand correctly, the step number 1 is education. So would you go back to the individual retailers, or would you go work through the RCC, the Retail Council of Canada? What would be your thought process in addressing allegations that maybe affect more than one retailer?
Absolutely. I mean, with our process, if the office is hearing from, whether it's an individual or an association, bringing an issue of concern related to the code to us, the first thing we do is to see if we can verify whether that's a code-related issue, because there's lots of things like pricing that don't fall under the code. We would gather as much information as we could on what exactly the issue is. Then our job, and this is my day job, is to really work with the other company, so the company at question, and to talk to them about behaviors, processes, or policies where we feel there might be a concern with regards to the code. At that stage, we're not opining as to code violation, no code violation. It's really about education to see if companies are aware of what's going on, if they have a good rationale for that, whether there's a code-related issue, and to start building the narrative and the discussion to try and then affect change if it really is a code issue.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Next, we'll go to MP Chattel for 5 minutes.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I'll be sharing my time with Madame Dawn-Durand. I have one question for you, Ms. Proud. If the small players have complaints, and they are systemic complaints, can they use the clause dealing with arbitration? Can they be represented by their associations to be able to reach your?
Really two pathways for a producer to access the support of the office without having to go through the formal dispute resolution process. They can go through our confidential portal where they can put all of their information by themselves and report their issues to us, or they can go to their industry trade association who can bring the issue to us also in confidence. And so there's ways that they can work with their association. And the importance of the associations are that they can get information from many of their members. And so they can really highlight for the office those big systemic issues. So not the one-offs, but the things that are affecting their entire industry. And so we encourage the members of ours and the producers to go through their association so their associations can bring it to us. We would operate in the same way that if we received information from an association, we would verify, we'd go through a process trying to get more information, and then we would take the issue to the other party to see if we can resolve it outside of a formal dispute.
Merci.
Thank you. Thank you. The dispute resolution process that you talk about for systemic things, is it already enshrined in the code, or is just a draft?
Systemic issues, this is our day job. And so the dispute resolution, the formal process, we had to create a process, a procedure of how we deal with it. The systemic issues is how we operate on a day-to-day basis. We don't have a specific process laid out because these could be many different issues requiring different approaches to those issues, requiring different discussions. We have principles laid out in a draft, but it's not requiring the same level of governance as formal disputes.
Okay. That's in a draft, so it's not sure yet, so there's kind of no certainty around it from my understanding. I'd like to bring you to le règlement administratif.
The administrative bylaws with respect how the office operates. I refer to section 2(1)V for the quality of members. The quality of members is accessible for certain members, but in the code of conduct, they say certain associations can be members of the code of conduct.
Not sure which document you're looking at. Associations in our bylaws are very clear that associations cannot be members of the office. They're currently interim members because they've been tasked to set up the office and go through the governance, but associations cannot be members of the office, and the code has been designed to operate between retailers and their suppliers, not between retailers, suppliers, and associations.
Okay, donc j'ai.
Okay, I have the bylaws in front of me here. They say that the quality of the member that is accessible to associations as well as individual members. So you're saying that associations can't be members. That's one thing that is certain. But amongst your members, there are entities like Peak of the Market and Canadian Independent Grocery Buyers. Are these associations?
When we get member requests coming into the office, we don't know who all these entities are. We submit those to our membership to verify that these individuals that apply for membership qualify within one of the classes of our membership. It's possible that someone slips in that shouldn't be a member. We would rectify that and remove their membership if it was brought to our attention in that way.
Thank you very much. Mr. Perron?
Thank you.
Monsieur le Président. Madame Proud, on va continuer sur la même ligne. Vous dites que vous...
Continue in the same line of questioning. Let me go back to the same bylaw that was brought up by my colleague, 2.1. It says associations can be partners unless I do not understand what I'm reading. I don't know why you're not surprised to hear me say that. We're talking about the same thing. Associations, you have small agricultural producers face a significant risk. You spoke about the UK earlier, where nobody spoke to the adjudicator for the first little while because of confidentiality fears. But associations can't be there. They can't defend their members. But those members aren't all lawyers or major retailers. You say that the process, the informal process that leads to systemic issues is, if I understood what you said, is not set out in detail. So, but how can small producers then trust that there'll be something there for them? For the moment, when you take a look at the figures, there are about 100 members, but there are very few agricultural producers. I'm very concerned about that because trust is of prime importance.
I agree that it is challenging for those who don't want to bring forward complaints because of concerns about confidentiality. We are trying very hard to make the processes so that people do feel comfortable bringing issues. I did not make the decision that associations cannot be members of the code. It's written, the way the code is written is very clear that the code applies to retailers and their suppliers. It doesn't apply to associations. The bylaws as they are written are also very clear that the interim members may be associations, but as soon as we move to finalize things, they will no longer be members. That's the way the governance was developed before my office was created. But to your point, we are trying to make the system as simple as possible as well, so that producers and suppliers and others can access it without the requirement of legal counsel. It's not meant to be an onerous legal process with lots of red tape. Those that designed the process wanted it to be very similar to what they have in the UK, which is a light touch approach. And the approach in the UK is exactly the same as the approach that we're using here.
Je comprends, Madame Proud, qu'est-ce que...
Ms. Proud, I understand what you're saying, but there's something I still don't understand. You're talking about bylaws and regulations. It seems, if I don't understand this, that there should be a written explanation of Section 2.1b, where it is said that associations can be members. But you're saying no, and that was written on the website. But maybe I'm not in the right place. Maybe I'm not looking at the right section. But can you send us something in writing to explain about this? It's written down. The word association is here. So is it the major suppliers, the major chains that didn't want to have associations involved? Anything to do with this code? I don't understand the rationale.
Came about as to who was in the code, who wasn't in the code. I wasn't part of the conversation at the time. The associations still have a very important role to play, and they can still represent their members to the office. So I'm not sure what membership would provide to an association that doesn't currently exist in the structure that we've created.
L'autre question, je ne veux pas vous coincer.
I don't want to put you in a bad position, Ms. Proud, but I know that trust is important, and you inspire confidence for me and for the committee itself. But some small producers have said to me that how are they going to function with distributors? They are concerned. They're fearful. Will it be partial? I hope that you say that there won't be a problem. I'd like you to answer that perhaps in an email. But wouldn't there be some kind of process where we could adjust this as to how future work is carried out?
Completely impartial. I'm aware of the email that you were referring to. I believe that's been sort of misconstrued. I had asked one of the associations to put me in touch with some of their members that represented the grower communities, because I wanted, as I said in my opening, we're wanting to consult with them. That association took it upon themselves to send my email out and copy me. It wasn't my direct request, but I was happy that they were engaging with their members to try and get me more associations to speak to. And I think that was misconstrued, the intent behind that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you again in the future. We're going to suspend now for a few minutes while we change the panel. We will be going into camera, so please, if you're not staff or MPs, everyone else will have to leave the room. Thank you so much.